It's Sunday afternoon. Your chores are done, your laundry's folded, the inbox is miraculously empty. You finally have permission to relax. But you can't. Instead of peace, you feel a phantom vibration in your pocket, a tightening in your chest. A voice in the back of your head starts whispering, "You should be doing something. You're wasting time. You're falling behind." This has a name. Leisure sickness. It's when you actually feel sick the moment you stop working. Now, you might tell yourself, "I'm just type A," or "it's just my personality." Indeed, we use these labels to convince ourselves that this anxiety is a genetic quirk, that we were simply born this way. But that is a lie. You weren't born unable to sit still. You were trained to be unable to sit still. You're the victim of a specific, invisible philosophical architecture designed to make you impossible to satisfy. You've been infected by what the German philosopher Josef Pieper, in his famous book Leisure, the Basics of Culture, called the logic of total work. It's the belief that a human being is nothing more than a worker, and that any moment not spent producing value is a moment wasted. Hi, I'm Dan, and in today's Philosophies for Life, we're going to be taking a look at exactly why you feel guilty when you rest, and how to reclaim your right to simply exist. To understand why you can't sit still on a Sunday, we have to look at a specific 18th century blueprint drawn up by a philosopher named Jeremy Bentham. It was a design for what he considered to be the perfect prison. He called it the Panopticon. The design was terrifyingly simple. In the centre, you have a guard tower with dark windows. Surrounding it is a ring of cells backlit by the sun. The trick was simple. The prisoners could see the tower, but they couldn't see inside it. They never knew if the guard was watching. He might be asleep, he might not even be there. But because the prisoner might be watched, he had to behave perfectly at all times. Eventually, the tower can be empty. It doesn't matter. The prisoner has become his own warden. The French philosopher Michel Foucault argued that our entire society is basically a giant panopticon. Our schools, factories, and hospitals all look suspiciously like prisons. They all rely on the same machinery to make us obedient. Think about a classroom. Why are the desks arranged in rows facing the front? So the authority figure can see everyone at once. Think about the modern open-plan office. It's not designed for collaboration, it's designed for visibility. They use something called normalizing judgment. They measure you against the average. In school, it's your GPA or grade point average. In the hospital, it's your BMI or body mass index. At work, it's your KPIs or key performance indicators. You're constantly being measured against a standard, and if you fall below that curve, you're shamed, you're disciplined, you are abnormal. But surveillance alone doesn't explain the guilt. To understand the guilt, we have to look at a sociologist named Max Weber. In 1905, he wrote The Protestant Ethic and the Spirit of Capitalism. He argued that in the West we turned work into a religion. In the old days, you worked to survive, but the Protestants believed that working hard was a sign that you were saved by God. Wasting time wasn't just lazy, it was a sin against the Almighty. Today, we've killed God, but we've kept the guilt. When you sit on the couch on Sunday, you don't feel like you're relaxing, you feel like a sinner in the hands of an angry God. But the God is now the economy, and your penance is checking your email. The philosopher Byung-Chul in his book The Burnout Society says that we've moved from a disciplinary society to an achievement society. The old world, the disciplinary society, was ruled by you must. You must work these hours. You must obey the master. In that world, the enemy was external. It was the boss. It was the system. If you were tired, you could blame them. But today, we live in the achievement society. It's ruled by the phrase, you can. You can be a millionaire. You can have six-pack abs. You can launch a startup. This looks like freedom, but Byung-Chul argues it's actually the most efficient form of slavery ever invented. But why? Because when the command is you must and you fail, you're a rebel. But when the command is you can and you fail, you're just, well, a failure. In this system, there is no boss to hate. There's only you. You are the project manager of your own life. So when you sit down to rest, you don't feel like you're sticking it to the man, you feel like you're cheating yourself. As Hahn writes, the victim and executioner are now one and the same. The reason you feel guilty isn't that you've got work left to do, it's that the work is never done. The reason you feel guilty is that you've become the absolute worst boss you've ever had. For 99% of human history, stress was a short burst. You saw a lion, you escaped, and then the stress turned off. You went back to sitting in your cave by the fire, staring into the flame for hours and hours. Stress had a beginning, a middle, and an end. But modern capitalism has hacked this system. The modern world doesn't have lions, it has email notifications. It has deadlines, it has rent, it has the 24-hour news ticker. None of these things will kill you instantly, but unlike the lion, they never go away. And so we've entered a state of chronic, low-level activation. You aren't getting that giant spike of adrenaline to run from a predator. You're getting a constant intravenous drip feed of cortisol, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. You're literally marinating in stress hormones. And here's the scary part. Your body has become addicted to its own stress. Think about what happens when a heavy coffee drinker skips their morning cup. They don't feel relaxed because the caffeine's gone. They feel a headache. They feel irritable. They feel sick. They're in withdrawal. And this is exactly what happens to you on a Sunday afternoon. When the work stops, the cortisol drip stops. Your body panics. It's forgotten how to operate in rest and digest mode. It interprets the silence not as safety, but as danger. This is why you pick up your phone. Be honest, you aren't picking it up because you actually want to see another Instagram story. You don't really care. You're picking it up to get a hit of micro-anxiety. You're looking for a notification. You're looking for a headline. You're looking for anything that will spike your cortisol back up to that baseline you're used to. You're checking your phone for the same reason a smoker takes a drag of a cigarette. Not to feel good, but just to feel normal. You aren't a workaholic because you love your work. You're a functional addict, and your drug of choice is your own anxiety. We stay busy because we're terrified of who we are when we stop. Think about the very first question you ask a stranger at a party. So, what do you do? We don't ask, who are you or what do you love? We ask, how useful are you to the economy? In our culture, your value as a human being is directly tied to your economic output. If you're busy, you're in demand. If you're exhausted, you're essential. If you're resting, well, you must not be very important then. In the 19th century, the economist Thorstein Veblen coined the term conspicuous leisure. Back then, if you were rich, you didn't work. Idleness was the ultimate status symbol. It proved you didn't have to labour. But today, the script has flipped. We have conspicuous busyness. Notice what happens when you ask a friend how they've been. They generally sigh, roll their eyes and say, "Oh man, I'm just so busy lately. You wouldn't believe. It's crazy. I'm just so busy right now." Whew. But they aren't really complaining. They're humble bragging. They're signalling, "Look at me, the market needs me. The world cannot spin without me." And for men, this is particularly lethal. We're conditioned to believe that our value is our utility. If we aren't providing, protecting, or producing, we feel invisible. We don't rest to recover, we rest to reload. We're terrified that if we put down the shield for 1 second, will be exposed as weak. To rest is to admit that you're dispensable. To rest is to confront the terrifying possibility that if you stepped off the treadmill, the company would replace you in 2 weeks and nobody would care. We use busyness as a shield against our own irrelevance. And this leads us to perhaps the single scariest quote in the entire history of philosophy. The French mathematician, yes, I said mathematician, Blaise Pascal, wrote this in the 1600s. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. But why? Why is sitting alone so hard? It's not because it's boring. It's because it's confrontational. When the noise of email stops, when the validation from the boss stops, when the distraction of the podcast stops, you have to meet yourself. And for many of us, that stranger in the mirror is someone we've been avoiding for a long time. In the silence, the default mode network of your brain turns on. You start to hear the thoughts you've been drowning out with work. Am I actually happy? Is this relationship working? Is this really what I want to do with my life? These are terrifying questions. So what do? We grab the anesthesia, we open the laptop, we check the stock market, we clean the kitchen for the 3rd time. We choose the exhaustion of the body over the terror of the mind. We'd rather be tired than conscious. If I asked you why you sleep or why you take a vacation, what would you say? You'd probably say something like, to recharge, to blow off steam, or to get my energy back. But notice that language. Recharge. It's a metaphor for a battery, a machine. And a machine recharges for one reason only, so it can go back to work. In our current system, we've destroyed the concept of leisure and replaced it with recovery. The philosopher Josef Pieper argued that this is a tragedy. He said that real leisure isn't a break from work, it's the point of life. Leisure is doing something for its own sake. It's looking at a sunset, not to post it to Instagram, but just to see it and enjoy it. It's reading a book, not to learn key takeaways for your business, but just to enjoy the story. But under the logic of total work, everything must have an ROI, a return on investment. The system hates useless time. It wants to colonize every second of your life. So we don't just go for a walk anymore, we have to get our steps in. We track it, we optimize it. We don't just have hobbies anymore, we have side hustles. You can't just enjoy baking, you have to sell the cupcakes too. You can't just enjoy the painting, you have to open an Etsy shop. We've monetized our joy. We've turned our free time into unpaid labor. We feel guilty when we rest because we've convinced ourselves that if an activity doesn't make money or improve our health, it's a waste of time. But just think about that logic for a second. If everything you do is for something else, when do you actually ever live? If you work to get money and you rest to work better, you're stuck in a loop that only ends when you die. The philosopher Bertrand Russell saw this coming almost 100 years ago. He wrote a famous essay called In the Praise of Idleness, dropping this hammer in the process. The morality of work is the morality of slaves, and the modern world has no need of slavery. He meant that only a slave defines their entire worth by how hard they work. A free person defines their worth by how well they live, and we've forgotten how to be free. We've forgotten how to be useless. So how do we escape? We don't do it with life hacks. We do it by rewiring the philosophy that runs our lives. And here's 4 ways to do that. The first is memento mori. Memento mori means realization of your morality, remembering that you are going to die. The Stoic philosopher Seneca famously said, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire." The ultimate antidote to the logic of total work isn't a bank account, it's the realization that you're going to die. When you zoom out far enough, your emails aren't actually urgent, your quarterly goals aren't really that important. The fact that you're behind schedule is irrelevant. The reason you feel guilty for resting is that you think you have infinite time. You think you can rest later, once you've made it, once it's all done. But later is never guaranteed. But when you truly understand your own mortality, wasting time on things you hate becomes the only true sin. The most dangerous man to the system is the man who knows his time is short and refuses to sell it cheaply. Second is the Nixon Bridge. The Dutch have a concept called niksen. It translates to the deliberate practice of doing nothing. And I mean nothing. Not meditating to improve mindfulness, not listening to a podcast to learn. Just existing. Your challenge is simple. Set a timer for 10 minutes and go sit by a window. Look at the trees. When you do this, the guilt will scream at you. Your brain will say, "This is useless, you're lazy." Recognize that voice. That voice isn't your conscience. It's the withdrawal symptom. Treat it as such. Treat it like a fever. It feels bad, but it will pass if you don't feed it. Third is Wu Wei. Ancient Taoism teaches Wu Wei, which means not forcing things. Think of someone trying to open a stuck door by pushing harder and harder, only to realize it opens by pulling. Wu Wei is about noticing that instead of exhausting yourself. It's working with the situation, not against it. This idea goes against grind culture, which says more effort is always better. Often, the problem isn't that we aren't trying enough, but that we're trying in the wrong way. We push even when it drains us, believing struggle equals progress. Wu Wei suggests slowing down, paying attention and responding to what actually helps, like stepping away from a problem, taking a short walk and coming back to it with a clearer mind instead of forcing a solution. When you do that, work still gets done, usually with less stress and better results. Your mind clears, your energy lasts longer, and creativity returns. By stopping the constant push, you end up accomplishing more because you're no longer fighting yourself. Fourth and finally, define enough. Imagine there's a universal rule introduced tomorrow, a maximum income cap. Let's say the rule states that once you earn an amount of X dollars, enough to be comfortable, safe and fed, you cannot earn a penny more. No matter how much harder you work, no matter how much more value you produce, you won't be compensated for it. The surplus simply vanishes. Now, ask yourself honestly, would you still work this hard? Would you still answer that email on Sunday? Would you still stress over the font size on that presentation? If the answer is no, then you're not driven by passion. You're driven by a hunger that has no bottom. The system is designed to have no finish line. It tells you that if you just make a little bit more, you'll finally be happy. But that is a mathematical lie. There are two ways to get rich. You can work yourself to death to get more, or you can simply want less. Sit down and actually write out your wants. Be specific, like, I want a comfortable apartment, I want good food, I want to travel twice a year. Then calculate exactly how much that costs. You might realize that to fund that life, you don't actually need the high-pressure 80-hour-a-week job. You might realize that you can take a smaller job, earn less money, but buy back your freedom. You can choose to invest that time in learning a passion, picking up a hobby, or simply sleeping rather than investing it in a corporation that doesn't love you back. The most rebellious thing you can do in a capitalist society is to look at the pile you've made and say, "This is good. I have a few wants and I have enough to satisfy them. I am free." The system, the panopticon, the cortisol, the status, it all wants one thing from you. It wants you to be a battery. It wants you to be efficient, predictable, and constantly running. But you aren't a battery. You're a person. And as a person, you have a fundamental right that the market will never acknowledge. You have a right to be useless. I don't mean useless to your friends or your family. I mean useless to the economic engine. You have a right to have hours in your day that have zero commercial value. Because if you look back at your life, the moments that actually mattered, the moments you'll remember when you're old, they were probably all useless. That time you spent laughing with a friend until your ribs hurt? Useless. No ROI. The time you fell in love? Useless. Not productive. Watching a sunset? Playing with a dog? Staring at the ceiling and dreaming? All useless. And yet, those are the only moments that make being alive worth it. So don't let guilt steal those moments from you. Don't let the world trick you into trading your life for a slightly better performance review. The most revolutionary thing you can do in a world obsessed with speed is to slow down and live. And that's our video. If you enjoyed it, please make sure to check out our full Philosophies for Life playlist. And for more videos to help you find success and happiness using beautiful philosophical wisdom, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks so much for watching.